There's a generation that built most of what you drive past every day. The subdivision that your parents grew up in, the hardware store that's been on the same corner since before you were born, the business that quietly employs half a neighborhood and nobody thinks twice about. Baby boomers built an enormous amount of the world we're still living in, and they're not going to be here much longer. Not all at once, not tomorrow. But over the next 15 years, this country is going to go through something that has genuinely not gone through before, not just retirements. It's going to be deaths at a scale that nobody alive has seen happen to a single generation. And it raises a question that doesn't get asked often enough because it's a little uncomfortable to say out loud. It's been burrowed in my brain for several weeks now. What actually happens to the houses, the businesses, the money, and in reality, the whole shape of the economy when they're gone? I wanted a real answer on this, not just the scary headline version. Let's start with just how big this generation is, because the number's easy to say and hard to actually picture. There's roughly 61 million Americans 65 and older right now. That's about 18% of the entire country. 1 in 5 people that you pass. They came up through the most stable stretch of relative peace and economic growth this country has ever had, and they built accordingly. They built businesses, they built suburbs, they built entire industries. Now, think about what they hold because of that. They own 34% of every owner-occupied home in America, worth an estimated, wait for it, $13.8 trillion. And separately, more than half of all the small businesses in this country have owners who are over the age of 55. It's two different kind of ownerships, houses and businesses, but they're both concentrated in the same generation, and they're both about to change hands over roughly the same period of time. If you ask most people in real estate what happens to housing when a generation this size ages out, you'll hear the same phrase, silver tsunami. Millions of homes all hitting the market together, prices falling because there's simply too much supply and not enough people wanting it. And instinctively, it feels right. But here's the part that you want to sit with for just a second. So 2/3 of the boomers, 66% of them, own their home outright. There's no mortgage, there's no financial pressure pushing them towards the decision, and a lot of them are not choosing to leave. The National Association of Home Builders found that fewer older homeowners are downsizing or transitioning than expected, even as the youngest boomers turn 60 this year. People are investing in aging-in-place renovations instead of listing. Assisted living costs have gotten expensive enough that staying put is often the safer financial call. So the wave everybody predicted is real. It's undeniable, but it's happening and arriving slower than what the headlines suggested, and it's landing incredibly unevenly. The Home Builder Association mapped where the older homeowner heavy markets actually sit against where young buyers who absorb that inventory live. And in a lot of places, those two maps really don't overlap. Florida, the Rust Belt, big parts of the Northeast, that's where the concentration of older homeowners is highest and the population of young buyers behind them is thinnest. Tampa alone is projected to see 1/3 of its currently owner-occupied homes turn over by 2037. Now, that's a real meaningful shift for those specific places. But if you look at a growth market, Raleigh sits at just 10% of homes owned by adults 70 and older. It's the lowest share among the growth metros that researchers tracked alongside Atlanta, Denver, and Austin. These are also the metros with the strongest household formation among younger adults, meaning there are already people here to buy whatever does come to the market. Inclusion named Raleigh as one of the metros most likely to benefit from this shift rather than you should look at. The median home in Raleigh is 22 years old. The national median is 43. Now, again, the farther north and east you go, the older it gets. So New York State is one of the places that's actually living through this silver tsunami right now. Their average or median home age is 65. Now, that gap matters because older owners tend to sit in older homes, and older homes in a market without enough demand are exactly what creates the nobody wants it as is problem. Most of what's here got built during the same growth boom that's filling it back up. The other thing to consider is Wake County's median age is 37. Only 12.9% of the county is 65 or older, well under the national share, and the median owner-occupied home was built around the turn of the century. This is a county that's young and still growing, not one sliding towards a demographic cliff. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not changes happening here. Individual neighborhoods full of original owners from the 90s, parts of Cary, North Raleigh, older pockets of Garner, will genuinely see turnover as those specific owners age out over the next 10 to 15 years. That's worth watching, but again, that's a slower, more local story, not the country-wide flood that the national coverage is describing right now. The other half of this story, as we mentioned earlier, are the businesses. Close your eyes for a minute and picture the guy who's run the same machine shop or landscaping company for 30 years. He built it from nothing. He employs, say, a dozen people, knows every customer by name. He's 68. He hasn't talked to anyone about what happens to that business when he's ready to stop, because honestly, who wants to have that conversation? So back to our guy who's a landscape owner or a machine shop owner, 68-year-old, has been in the business, knows everybody. McKinsey's Institute for Economic Mobility did a pretty rigorous analysis on this, and they published it in February 2026. They estimate that 6 million small and mid-sized businesses will go through ownership transitions by 2035, so the next decade. More than half of all small business owners are already over 55. The Exit Planning Institute puts the share of owners with zero formal exit plan above 70%. Now, of that 6 million, McKinsey estimates a little over 1 million are genuinely viable candidates for a sale or an employee buyout, representing about $5 trillion in enterprise value. That leaves roughly 5 million businesses without a clean path to a buyer. Some of those close quietly, some will liquidate, and a meaningful share of them are sitting on real estate. It's like an owner-occupied shop, a storage yard, a strip of retail that outlives the business itself. That's a piece worth understanding, because when a business like that winds down, the dirt doesn't just disappear. It becomes available in a way that has nothing to do with a homeowner deciding to downsize and everything to do with an owner who ran out of runway and just never had the conversations. Two more pieces on this, because it explains why even the experts can't agree on how big this whole shift really is. There's a lot of talk about the great wealth transfer, the money passing from this generation to the next. Cerulli Associates estimates that there's 124 trillion moves through 2048, with 105 trillion of that going directly to heirs. Visa's economists, using a different model, put the number at 36 trillion. So we have two pretty robust credentialed teams, same generation, and they're nearly $90 trillion. And for me, that's always a signal, is when that tells you that nobody actually has a precise number, and anyone who hands you one with total confidence is guessing louder than what the data supports. So I think part of the tsunami feeling is we really don't know how big it is. We just know it's large. So back to the original question. What happens when the boomers aren't here anymore? Everything shifts, right? Change happens. It's just not all at once and not everywhere the same way. The houses release slowly, mostly in places that they already have too many older owners and not enough younger buyers. So the Rust Belt, the Northeast, specific Florida retirement markets. But if you're in a growth metro, the Triangle, Austin, Denver, they absorb whatever does come to market almost as fast as it appears, because the people who buy it are already here. The businesses are the quieter story of all this. Millions of them are heading toward a decision their owners haven't made yet. So I think that you need to be careful of national headlines, pull the actual local numbers. And if you're in a growth market, the flood is not coming. Certain markets will get hit harder with this than others. You are seeing an uptick. However, to scream that the world is going to end all at one time, things happen slowly, then all of a sudden. The other thing I would end with is, if you're building a business or an investment strategy around this shift, the opportunity really isn't waiting on houses, right? It's getting to know the small business owners over 55 in your market now, years before they're ready to sell, because that's usually the only way to find out. Otherwise, you're going to find out when everybody else does. And if it's your own family, your own parents, your own aging business, the honest answer is the same one that applies to everyone else. Don't wait for the wave to tell you what you have to do. Have the conversation early, while there's still time to plan for it instead of react to it. So again, The shift is coming. It's real. It's bigger than most people are prepared for. We're seeing the economists can't even agree on the number. It's just not the single wall of water that everyone keeps promising. It's more of a long, drawn out, protracted wave. And where you're standing matters, just like when you're on a beach, more so than the actual wave itself. Now, we get really deep into this on deepdirt.co. We do our dirt almanac, and we're always looking at different trends and things to give our members a little bit of a forecasted and forward-looking view, as well as some mental models to view the market and different statistics in a different manner. So jump in there if you're not in there. It's for investors, it's for developers, it's for builders. Come join in if you're interested, and we'll see you guys